everyone. This is Allie.
And this is AJ.
And welcome to episode 7 of Not That AA. And we thank you for joining us. And today we have a few different topics. We're going to start off, of course, with our strange but true news, and then talk a little bit about Star Wars, and also the Uncharted series. We have the remastered version of the first 3, and we finished playing through them this past week. So We'll talk about those too. So, for our strange but true news, and I read about this on Yahoo and Tomo News, and it happened in California. And what happened was that this guy, 18-year-old valedictorian, decided to make a homemade rocket skateboard, which, you know, just to me, right off the bat, seems like all sorts of bad news. Apparently, the rocket malfunctioned, and it exploded, and he died. So, you would think that a valedictorian would know not to jump on a homemade explosive, but I guess he was trying to make a skateboard go faster, whatever, impress a girl. I have no idea, but today's Darwin Award is going to go to this guy.
I mean, don't get me wrong, it's unfortunate.
You're laughing?
Okay, like, if you're a valedictorian, like, presumably you're somewhat smart, right?
Yeah.
Like, what went through this kid's mind to put, like, rockets on a skateboard?
Well, they haven't shared any information about, you know, what sort of fuel or propellant or any sort of design elements of the rocket. But, yeah, it's just all sorts of bad idea. And the thing is that it's sad, too, because, you know, as a young guy, he probably had a really bright future ahead of him. But at the same time, it's so sad that he died doing something so phenomenally stupid.
I mean, there's no way he was going to come out on top for this. If he didn't die, let's just say he didn't die from this, he would have been arrested and branded a terrorist for lighting a rocket in the middle of a neighborhood. I mean, come on. There's no way you can come out on top of that.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, or you know what? That's actually really fortunate that no one else was killed in this. He did have a friend who was there who was injured, but the injuries were not, you know, critical. And so the friend's going to be okay, but yeah, apparently this is like a message, like a public service announcement. In case you didn't know, it's a bad idea to make your own explosives and then try to ride them like a bomb from Dr. Strangelove.
Yeah, you're not Iron Man. It's not happening.
Exactly.
So
yeah. So, moving on. Now we're going to talk about Star Wars. And as most of you probably know, the what was it? It's episode 8. Sorry, I was trying
7.
No, 7? Really? 4, 5.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, 4, 5, 6. Sorry. 4, 5, 6 is the original trilogy. So 7 is the one that just came out on DVD, digital download, etc., etc. And so what are your thoughts? I know you're a huge Star Wars fan.
Yes, I love Star Wars. not to mention the new Rogue One trailer just came out.
Yes. So
that's another topic. We'll talk about the new movie first.
Well, the new-ish movie.
The newish, yeah. So I know a lot of people are really complaining about how it's basically a New Hope.
Yeah.
How it's really similar. But, I mean, come on. Like, I think there's several reasons for that. Number one, they are trying to start out a brand new trilogy. Okay? So I think it's actually kind of cool that there's structural similarities because it's like introducing a whole new generation to Star Wars.
Yeah.
Right, but with more modern take on it. Like, there's a lot more character development in this one. The villain is a lot less, like, how would I say it? Like, vanilla. You know, it's not, like, the villain is not so clear that he's a villain. Like, he has internal struggles and stuff like that.
Oh, okay, I get it.
I mean, by now it's not a spoiler, right? I mean, Kylo Ren is kind of being torn between his legacy of being a Skywalker versus, you know, being torn by the power of the dark side.
Well, yeah, because his grandpa's Darth Vader.
So it's like, does he want to carry that legacy of, his dad, where he was, a Sith, or does he want to go with, what happened later on? His dad finally turned over to the light side and joined and helped Luke Skywalker.
What do you mean his dad was a Sith? You mean his grandfather?
Yeah, his grandfather. Sorry.
I was like, when you said that his dad and the dark side, I was like, wait, what?
Yeah, sorry, his grandfather. But I feel like his character is a lot less one-dimensional. Like, it's not like, oh, he's definitely bad. It's like, there's a little bit of a gray area.
He's not fully bad yet.
Yeah.
There's still a little bit of the light side in him.
Yeah. So, and another thing, too, is... there's like the similarity between the Death Star and the new like planet destroyer or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's similar, but I feel like they did that, like I said, on purpose to kind of draw that similarity. But a lot of the directors have said that episode 8 and 9 will take a completely different direction. So, I mean, it hits on all the nostalgia points for all the people that watched this growing up.
Yeah.
But also adds to it a lot that we didn't fully explore before.
And I think there's that, like you said, there's that really strong nostalgia because the people who grew up with it have kids of their own now.
Yeah.
And so they're kind of showing them, or they're able to share, that love of Star Wars and that love of the whole story and the whole mythology behind it with another generation, like you said. And also, I don't mind the repeat of like this planet destroying base, because when you think about it, you're in space, okay? What is the most evil thing you can do in space? Blow up an entire world, okay? It's not like the wars here on Earth where, you have different... weapons, or back in the old days where they would poison the water supply or launch plague bodies over the castle walls and stuff like that. It's a whole other ballgame. And so since everything is so remote and spread apart, like the worst thing you could do, or the worst thing you could have a power to do, is to blow up an entire planet. It's almost godlike. And so you can understand why people would aspire over and over again to have that sort of power and that sort of weapon to wield, even if they never used it, just to have that leverage over your enemy and just to like bend them to your will, because it's like, well, guess what? If you don't do this, I'm going to destroy your whole planet.
So, yeah, that's one thing. And another thing is it's really easy to focus on just the parts you don't like, right? You can say that the Star Wars have these similarities, but if you really want to nitpick, you can say that about anything, right? You can say that all action movies have a similar plot line.
Yeah.
And it always starts with a good guy turned bad, and then realizing that being bad is not good and turns good again, or whatever. There's always certain plot twists that certain genres follow.
Yeah.
So you can say that about just about anything, comedies, action movies, but something that I really like about this one, there's a couple of things. So I think the number one thing is they have a really strong heroine this time.
Yes.
I think everyone loves the new heroine.
Rey?
Yeah. And also something really interesting that they put in, I don't know if a lot of people are talking about, is the addition of Finn, the stormtrooper. So for those of you that don't know the original trilogy, there are clones, right? And it's really interesting because in this one, they're exploring like actual people being like brainwashed to work as like a stormtrooper.
Yeah.
And it really shows because you can tell that like stormtroopers aren't homogenous anymore. There's like a little bit of personality to each one. That's why you have Captain Phasma, and then you have Finn, and then you have like they quibble with each other. Like back then, when you have stormtroopers, they're just all like boring, same super soldier type thing, right?
Yeah.
Because they're clones. You know, there's no interesting dialogue or interactions between them.
Yeah, they just followed orders blindly.
I think that's a really interesting plot point that could evolve to something greater. Like Finn, some argue that Finn could be force sensitive. That's why he was able to escape his programming.
Yeah.
And by the way, Finn's number is actually Leia's cell from A New Hope. For those of you that never noticed.
Leia's cell?
Yeah.
Oh.
I think it was like FN2187 or something like that. That's a reference to Leia's cell when she was locked away in the Death Star.
Wow.
Yeah. There's a lot of references in there. And I like how they gave BB-8 a lot more personality.
It's funny. I think that was really a huge challenge because R2-D2 had a lot of personality too.
Yeah.
And to see them repeat that and it not be like the same.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? There's enough difference between BB-8 and R2-D2 to where they're both very unique characters.
Mm-hmm.
And they're both characters that like everyone would love.
R2-D2 felt more like a droid that was like all about playing by the rules. Mm-hmm. And then BB-8 is kind of like the rebel.
Yeah, he has like an attitude.
Yeah,
that's
what I like about him.
I also like the fact that they were smart enough to not throw in a Jar Jar Binks type character.
Yeah.
And which was great. And so you really had, I don't think now when I'm thinking about it, I don't think there were any quote unquote bad characters. Like characters that when you just see them, you're like, oh God, this is ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, everything seemed to flow and make sense. And coming from a background where I wasn't really into Star Wars. Mm-hmm. I mean, the first time I watched a trilogy all the way through was with you. I mean, I'm sure I had seen it every once in a while with like my mom or my brother or whatever, but I didn't really think about it. I wasn't really a huge fan. My brother's a big fan of Star Wars and my mother's a Trekkie. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that's interesting. But there was kind of like that geeky background that mm-hmm. me and my dad weren't quite into. And so I honestly thought it was a good movie. So like if you know someone or you have friends who maybe aren't, hardcore into Star Wars, I think they would still enjoy the movie a lot.
I agree with that. I feel like the original it had kind of a cult following.
Yeah.
For a while. I mean, a lot of people loved it and praised it back then because it had really good practical special effects. Mm-hmm. So there was an interesting talk about this actually. It's so the original, it used practical special effects. So for those of you that don't know what that is when you're doing filmmaking, there's different ways of doing special effects. There's practical, where you actually design the special effects to mm-hmm. show up and be filmed. So for example, if you have an explosion, you'll actually set off like a mini explosion and film that. And as opposed to nowadays where everything is computer animated. So for example, in recent memory, the easiest way to tell the difference is between Lord of the Rings, which is practical special effects. Mm-hmm. Everyone had the makeup, so they looked like the orcs and the goblins. Mm-hmm. And then the fights, they were actually all like real effects.
Yeah.
Compare that to The Hobbit, where everything's like digital. Completely digital. CGI. And then the thing is, people really didn't like that because they can tell. Even
Ian McKellen didn't like that because as Gandalf mm-hmm. in the trilogy, he enjoyed it a lot. But then for the Hobbit movies, supposedly he would get really frustrated because he'd be just talking in front of a green screen. Yeah. And, someone with that amazing, theater and film pedigree, I mean, I can understand that it's like you're talking to yourself in a closet, how it can seem kind of ridiculous and hard. It'd be easy to lose your focus and your motivation.
Yeah. So, I mean, that brings into video games, right? So in video games, a lot of games now have a lot of cinematic, especially with Quantum Break.
Yes.
Quantum Break is one that just came out this week, and there's actual acting, like live segments of that game, along with CG segments where you're actually playing. And
it has Mary from Lord of the Rings.
And it also has Littlefinger from Game of Thrones as the villain.
And Iceman, right?
Yeah,
Sean Ashmore was Iceman, right? Okay.
So, like, if you see, like, when they do production, they have, like, those dots on them, and then they're just, like, literally, like, acting in a bunch of green boxes.
Yeah.
So, like, it almost makes you wonder, does it take more skill to act now than it did back in the day. Because there's no context anymore. You have to literally act out of imagination.
That is actually a really interesting point that you bring that up, because some people, myself included, think that actors have become less talented. You know, going past, the golden age of Hollywood, like the 50s, 60s, especially like when you go way back to like the 20s and 30s and 40s where you had amazing actors. Maybe acting is harder now because of all of the CGI effects and everything. That's only in one genre though. You have a bunch of rom-coms that are just terrible with no CGI or special effects.
Well, yeah, it's different.
Like for example, Katherine Heigl is going to be terrible in everything. Ashton Kutcher is going to be terrible in everything. Although he did play a decent Steve Jobs, so I'll give him that much. I mean, and then there's it seems like today, and this is like a tiny little tangent, there are very few actors who are like genuinely very talented. Like I like, Michael Fassbender a lot, James McAvoy, Natalie Portman, very like just phenomenal actors. But then you have, for every one great actor, you have like 100 shitty ones. Like, for example, I know you like her a lot, but Mila Kunis has no talent.
I don't like her for talent.
Okay, but you like her for the way she looks. Okay, and I'll give you that. She is gorgeous. But she has no talent.
She's always in like the worst movies.
Well, she doesn't play any sort of character. Yeah. She just goes and bees herself. And the bees herself, that doesn't sound right. She just goes and plays herself. And same thing with, gosh, who was I thinking of? I think I would put Kaylee Cuoco in that same category. Pretty much a terrible actress, very one-dimensional. But she's not as good looking. She's looking pretty busted now.
So you know what I've noticed? It's that, how back in the day you would classify actors as
Zac Efron.
Zac Efron. Is he even in? He's in like Neighbors or something.
He's in a bunch of stuff where he runs around shirtless.
Yeah.
And that's because he's beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh, Jessica Alba is the only one. Back in the day, 10 years ago,
Zac Efron is like
important.
The prototypical guy you expect to see like walking outside Abercrombie and Fitch, like spraying perfume in your face.
Yeah.
Which is funny because that's what he was in the Neighbors. That's what he ended up doing.
Yeah.
But what I've noticed lately is that I feel like some of the best actors I've seen are in shows now. Like for example, Game of Thrones, even if you take it at face value, like ignore the fact that, like whatever the story's about and just look at how they're able to act. Some of the most convincing acting I've seen, I think, was from Game of Thrones. And the thing is, remember, a lot of this is CG and practical effects. Like
it's a mix of both, yeah.
There's an image somewhere on the internet of Emilia Clarke, like literally writing on a bunch of green boxes, like, superimposed
on a horse,
on a dragon.
Oh, dragon,
right?
Okay.
So like it's like amazing that they're able to act all that stuff out like without any context. And some of those people have gone on to do voice acting for video games. Like what's his name? With Tyrion's dad was a main actor in The Witcher.
Oh, Charles Dance?
Charles Dance, yeah. So, like, in fact, I don't
think you can put him in the same category, though, because he's just, like, a great actor in general.
That's true. But I think what I'm trying to say is I'm making the argument that with the way that video games are advancing, because, we're a video game podcast, I feel like it almost takes more talent to be a good video game voice actor now. Because now they not only have to do convincing emotions in their voice, they also have to act it out now too. A lot of those video game, like in-game motion is actually captured of those voice actors like doing stuff in the studio.
What I also have to hand to some of the voice actors is that some of them are from like, foreign countries, like, or English is not their first language.
Yeah.
Like the games like coming out of like Montreal and Russia and stuff like that, where they do convincing American or English accents. I mean, yeah, you'll have some people, some linguists like nitpicking over certain things, but for just even not even like new gamers, but regular gamers like us, like that doesn't, to me, it doesn't take away from the story. And my mom was like, her field of expertise is like linguistics. And so I kind of grew up with this kind of background, and it doesn't bother me. And it's really well done. And so I agree with you. Like, voice acting for video games has come so far. Like, even in the past, 5 years, too. I mean, it's really becoming much more of an art. And so we're seeing video games, creep more into not only theatrical and cinematic territories, but also sports. That was that whole debate whether or not, video games should be, broadcast on like ESPN and stuff like that, And I of course think they should, because I think that's cool. But yeah, it's really amazing to see how video games have become such an integral part of our culture. It's really, I'm kind of curious to see where it'll go now with, the 3D and the Oculus and the virtual reality stuff. See what's going to happen in the future.
Oh, so it's interesting you're bringing that up about the esports. This is something I forgot to add, and it's strange but true. One of my close friends went to University of California, Irvine. And they're always at the forefront of embracing, kind of like young, like techno culture.
Yeah.
So they've officially started the UC Irvine esports team.
Really?
So there's an official esports team sponsored by the school with scholarship and everything.
Oh my God.
Where they compete, like, nationally. So
wow.
I think that might be a thing now.
That's kind of cool. That would be pretty cool, like, for colleges and universities to start up these esports teams and have them in divisions and stuff. That is awesome. I would go see that. Like, I'm sorry, baseball games are boring. Like, there are certain sports that are better to play than watch. Like, baseball, soccer, football. I used to play all of them, and I would much rather play than watch. But for video games, I would actually rather watch. I would love to see, and I've never had the privilege to see this, like, really top-notch gamers, live, bust out the Red Bulls and the Gamer Grub. That's it.
This is a random fact. I used to play Counter-Strike on a professional league for a little bit.
Really?
A long time ago. It's really something to behold. Like, people are really, really good. The only reason I quit is because, like, if I had kept going, I would have failed out of high school. Because it's, like, it takes a lot of time.
Yeah,
That's why I believe it should be classified as a sport, because it takes a lot of dedication and practice. But anyway... Moving on to our next topic. So, we've just finished the Uncharted collection. I mean, we played 1 and 2 before, but this is the first time we got to play 1 through 3.
Like, all through.
All together.
Yeah.
So, what do you think about the whole collection?
Oh my God, I loved it. So, I know you tried to get me into 3. I know we had rented it ages ago, and I just really wasn't feeling it. I didn't really care for it. And I think that I really needed to play through 1 and 2 to appreciate 3. Because the stories kind of like build upon each other. And, you start understanding the relationship between Drake and Sully. And, I personally, since I'm kind of like a history dork as well, I love history. I love watching documentaries. I like the fact that, some of these things are based off of real places. Well, actually, all of them are based off of real things. And same thing with the Lara Croft ones. A lot of them are based off of real locations or real legends. And so I find I really enjoy them incorporating that, bit of mythology and historicity to it. And I just like Drake. I think he's a cool character. I like the female characters as well,
Elena.
like Elena and Chloe.
Mm-hmm.
I thought they were both really interesting, and they weren't just kind of like flat female characters. You know, they kind of had dynamic emotional ranges, and Elena is a really good example because you think she's this kind of like bitchy journalist who's like really like a prima donna or whatever when you first see her, but then you realize, oh no, she's pretty tough and she can keep up with him, and yeah, it's nice seeing that sort of depth in a female character where the lead, or both of the leads if you count Sully, are male.
So that's something that there's a lot of discussion ongoing in the video game community. It's that it's still largely very misogynistic in a way.
Every field is misogynistic.
Well,
in a way.
right, but the thing is, video games, with the way it's evolved, you know, it needs to catch up with the fact that there are a lot of female gamers now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, back in the day, maybe there's less, but nowadays, the fact is there are a lot of female gamers, like you, for example.
Yeah.
And the problem is, a lot of people who develop video games are male, and they don't know how to write a good female character.
Mm-hmm.
So up till now, a lot of the video games that have female in them, they're very one-dimensional. And, like, a lot of times it's like, I'm pretty sure girls don't talk like that. and you know, because a lot of these guys, like, they don't know what it's like from a girl's perspective. So I suspect that maybe Naughty Dog does a better job with this because some of their top writers are female.
Yeah.
And some of their game directors, in fact, are female.
That's awesome.
So that's great because there's very few females that make it to the top, so to speak, in the video game world, or in most fields in general.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we want that to change, but unfortunately, that's
close the wage gap.
So, like, Naughty Dog has done something really amazing with 2. Right, with Uncharted 2.
Mm-hmm.
It had a really nice ending and everything. And some people would argue 2 is the best Uncharted.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, they did 3. And then I think where it really showed their maturity, and this is the reason why a lot of people like Last of Us, is not because of the whole, like, you know, zombie kind of gameplay thing.
I hated the mushroom head thing. Ugh, that's gross. Creep me out.
People liked it because of the dynamic between Joel and Ellie.
Yeah.
Like, there's a level of bond between 2 characters that they wrote out in the story that I don't think was reflected in very many other video games before.
Mm-hmm.
And the ending was actually quite controversial. I don't know if you know what the ending was.
For Last of Us?
Yeah.
No.
But for those of you, spoiler alert, at the end, turns out Ellie was the only one that's resistant to the infection. So you find the safe house, and they want to basically kill her so they can study her and create a cure.
Oh, now I remember.
But you as the main character decided that, no, I care about her too much. Screw humanity. I'm going to take her, save her. And then I think he killed, like, the scientist or something and got out of there. So, like, I think there needs to be more stories like that are, like, more human, because I think in too many games, like, the endings are too unsatisfactory because it's always the same, right? The good guy comes out on top. Okay, well, I expected that because that's what usually happens. I feel like there needs to be more, like, these humanistic, like, pieces put into video games. It really makes you think at the end.
Like, what it makes you think, what choice would you have made?
Yeah.
And now that you mentioned the ending, I remember it. And I really flipped back and forth because, and I was thinking to myself, you know what, I'm glad I've never had to make any sort of decision like that, because it's like, on the one hand, yes, you want to at least try to save the world.
But there's no guarantee.
Yeah, right? Yeah. Is it worth the one life?
Yeah.
And now for him, since he had that bond with her, it wasn't.
Yeah.
But, like, if you have, like, a random scientist, of course it's worth it. You know, killing this one person could save, thousands of other people. Could. Mm-hmm. Just the remote possibility, even if it's a 1 in a million chance, it's still a chance. So, I mean, now they did something similar in Big Hero 8, where, remember the older...
Big Hero 6?
Big Hero 6. Why did I say 8? Oh, because I was thinking of Super 8.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. All right, and Hateful 8, too. I don't know why. Why do people put all these fucking numbers? Oh, and I was reading an article about Furious 8, too.
Oh, well,
that is going
go.
into production. And actually, someone just signed on to be into it. Oh, Charlize Theron is going to be in the 8th Fast and Furious movie.
I heard about that.
Yeah, I just read about that today. Anyways, so, like, for Big Hero 6, you know, the older brother's in grad school, and he actually runs into the building to save, a flaming building to save his boss, who's this, like, genius, okay? And the thing is that that's, like, the type of scenario that would make you think, you know, what would you do? From a humanistic standpoint, yeah, you know, you want to try to save the other life, but I'm speaking as someone who has been in grad school. That was a huge suspension of disbelief, because I don't know a single grad student, including myself, like, well, I'm not a grad student anymore, but when I was a grad student, who would run into a burning building to save their boss. I would have been like, you know what, that's too bad, and I would have started roasting marshmallows, because, you know, everyone hates their boss, and they wouldn't be willing to risk, you know, losing a sock over their boss. I'm just saying that as a tangent, and I just had to get my opinion out and how ridiculous that was.
Yeah. So, I mean, we'll see. We'll see what happens. The rumor is they're going to kill off a really important character in the new one.
In Uncharted?
Yeah, Uncharted 4. I mean, it is called A Thief's End, so...
Oh, so it's probably Sully.
It could be Sully. Some people are saying it could be Drake himself.
Bullshit.
Some people say...
if they kill him off, it has to be at the end.
Well, yeah, because there will be no game otherwise.
Exactly. I wouldn't mind playing a fully Sully game, but also, again, suspension of disbelief. This guy is going to be near 70 now. He's not going to be parkouring all over the place. So
we'll see what happens. I mean, it could be anyone. It could be his brother that he thought was dead for a long time.
Yes.
Some people think it's Elena, and some people think it's Chloe. So, I mean, we'll see. I really hope it's not Elena, because that would just be like...
I think if it's Elena, they would use that sort of storyline to segue him out of the game. Like, not the game as in the video game, but the being a thief, being a pirate, or being whatever he is.
I feel like that's a cop-out. Like, you develop this really strong female character, and then you kill her off at the end to prove how the main character is clueless or selfish. I feel like that's a very overused plot device. And I feel like that wouldn't do justice to
Well,
Elena.
I mean, it's been used to death, but that doesn't mean people aren't going to use it.
Yeah, but I mean, I just expected better.
I mean, if
Naughty
you
Dog.
read it into it literally, I think it's going to be Sully, okay?
Yeah.
But it could be Chloe, too. So, but I also think that it being the brother, like, I mean, you don't really see his brother in the other games, so who gives a shit? I mean, Drake is going to give a shit. But, I mean, the gamer's not going to care. It's like, oh, Bob's dead? Well, you know.
Or maybe
darn.
it's figurative, you know.
Well, that's what I was saying.
He's going to end his career.
That's what I was saying.
Yeah, but no one's going to actually die.
Oh,
but we know
okay.
Naughty Dog's going to kill someone, because they always do. So.
Okay.
So we'll see. We'll see. It's something that I'm really looking forward to. It's coming out in just a month from now, actually.
Really? Already?
May 10th, yeah.
Yes.
So out of the three, which one did you like the best?
That's hard. I think I liked the first one.
Did you?
Yeah.
That's the one with the zombies, right? With the Germans and the Mayans or something like that? Or was it
No,
the Aztec? That was the gold statue.
Oh.
Like when you touched it, it turned you like undead or something.
Well, that happened with like the resin as well, you know. So, but yeah, the one with the golden statue is the first one, just because it had to do with Drake himself, like the historical Drake, Francis Drake. and him finding his body. And then I thought that was really cool. I don't know. Maybe it's because it's more historically tied in that aspect. And, like, seeing how, like, basically searching for that treasure killed Drake and, like, and his, like, men.
That was why he was hiding it.
Yes. And he was there. It was sad because it was there, and that was his last stand. He died there. And it's kind of like, you know, we were talking about Lord of the Rings before, kind of when they're, like, in the mines of Moria. And he sees all, you know, Gimli sees, you know, all of his, you know, distant relatives there, and they had died there making their last stand. It's really sad to me, but it gives you more of that kind of background and into their character and, like, who he is. Like, he truly believes that he's a descendant from that person, you know? I mean, it's an interesting story, and it may or may not be true, but it was poignant.
Okay, yeah, I'll give you that. I think for me, my favorite has got to be... See, it's hard for me because I like aspects of each one. But if I were to absolutely pick one, I'd say 3.
3's good, yeah.
I like 2 because of kind of like the background story to it. You know, that one was the one with the tree of life, so to speak.
Yeah, the resin.
With the resin.
Yeah.
The boss was a pain in the ass.
But there is an easy way to beat him online. If you guys look at YouTube or Google it, there's an easy way to beat that boss, and it is hilarious.
Yeah. But I liked 3 because it's like, you know how Uncharted always has some element of unnaturalness to it?
Yes.
I felt like 3's unnatural, so to speak, is more believable. Because it was a hallucination.
Okay.
So, like, it was like a tainted, evil, like, spirit or something that tainted the water, and it drove the city mad, and it killed everyone.
Yeah, it was like a bunch of peyote in the water.
That was more believable to me than, like, you know, zombies. And,
yeah, it's easier to see everyone tripping balls as opposed to, like, being immortal.
Yeah. So... And it made more sense because and then it kind of tugged at our heartstring a little bit. It almost makes me wonder if that's why they did it. They want to see how people react. Is that we thought Sully was dead.
Oh.
You know, and I was like, I wonder if they did that to see like, how people react. So it was like...
I wasn't upset. I was just surprised when the scene where you think but he's almost died several times.
Yeah, but I wonder if they're doing that. So, like, in the 4th one, say if they hypothetically do kill him, and we're like, oh, no, he's not really dead. They're just
see, that's where
us.
I was in the 3rd. Yeah. Because he had been, like, shot in this 1st or 2nd one, too. Shot, quote, unquote. But he was really playing along with that guy.
Yeah.
And so, like, when you see the blow dart hit him or whatever he shot him with, the first thing I said was, he's not dead. He's not really dead. And so, I guess, maybe.
I wonder if they'll pull it on us. Like, 4, you're just, like, waiting for him to come back to life. And at the very end, the last scene, it's like his grave or something. I'll be like, oh. Shit.
No, I think, okay, if they were smart, like... They would do that, but it would be him fake dying again, but he's alive and someone else is dead. I don't know how... I know that sounds kind of weird. It's hard for me to explain it, but...
It'll be like some like really screwed up Batman versus Superman version. It's like, oh, he drank some serum and his heart starts beating again underground or something crazy like that.
Anyways, okay, so thank you for joining us again, and we are going to wrap this up because we've been talking for a while, and so thank you for listening, and hopefully we'll have a more regular podcasting schedule, and enjoy your springtime, and
have a good weekend.
Happy gaming.
Happy gaming.